Hello and welcome once again to another episode of 177 Nations of Tasmania podcast. Although Estonia is a small country in the north of Europe, far from the shores of Tasmania, there's quite a strong history of Estonian migration to Tasmania, mostly in the aftermath of World War II. My guest for this episode, Triin, is from a newer generation, adding to the small Estonian community here. Before she came to Tasmania, Triin was a professional volleyball player in Europe and met her Tasmanian husband playing volleyball in Estonia. But once they both reached the stage of their careers when they had to consider retirement, they had to make a decision about where to live, and Tasmania turned out to be the most viable option. Language and finding work were not actually a problem for Triin, but there were a number of cultural differences that were challenging to adjust to. As well as this, we also talk about the process of getting into professional volleyball in Estonia, her involvement also with developing volleyball in Tasmania, and how Australia compares to Estonia in terms of opportunities for women in sport. And of course, we talk about some very interesting aspects of Estonian culture.
So I grew up in Tartu in Estonia, which is our university town. It's a little bit smaller than Hobart, has 100,000 people, or it had when I left. It's almost half the size of Hobart. Yeah, I was there until I was 16, I think. And it was fun, heaps of fun there. It was green, luscious, cold at the same time. So cold, so much snow during winter times. Yeah, and comparing to what I have now, what I call winter here, it's like day and night. It was a great place to grow up, like a classical childhood in Estonia. Every summer I was shipped to grandma and to the summer house, and I literally was there for 3 months, where it was you woke up and you didn't go home until it was dark and you were hungry, and you just lived in the water or in the fields and were just doing kid stuff and having fun and not having many worries, and definitely not going home until it was dark. That's something I miss and remember the most.
And did your grandparents live far away?
No, it was only a 5-minute drive from the city. And it's pretty common for Estonians to have a summer house close by where everyone goes during summertime. You live there away from the city or you send the kids there. Now my parents live there permanently, but it's literally a 5-minute drive from the city.
So it's sounds a bit like what people in Tasmania would call a shack.
Yeah, it was considered a shack, but it was definitely not a shack. It's my favorite place to go back. Whenever I go back, that's where I'm going to stay, and it's an amazing place to grow up. So everyone lived in Tartu and everyone is still there. So my parents, my grandparents, one of my grandpa, he was always in the capital in Tallinn, but both of my grandparents, or grandmas and my grandpa were in Tartu, and that's where my family still is.
And what did your parents do when you were growing up?
So my mom is a volleyball coach, a junior volleyball coach, and my dad is a business owner. So it's a long story, but ultimately he deals with cars.
So tell me about what was it like at school, and when did you start playing volleyball?
School was rough for me. I was not a gifted child at school, and I like to do sports and just I learn as I go. Like I'm a hands-on learner, and academy was really hard for me to just sit there and remember things without having any concept. So it was really hard to just get myself involved because sports was my life. I started because my mom was a volleyball coach and a player. I was always surrounded by volleyball in my life. Like since I was an infant, I've been in a gym. That's how you grow up. You just are dragged to the sports center, put in a corner. At least the volleyball kids were. I remember we have these pictures where we are 1 and 2 and 3, and all the kids are just put in a like a soccer goal in the corner, like safe from the balls with that goal. But we're stuck inside there with the idea we can't run away, but we can't get hurt either. And we just sat there for hours and played with each other. And that's how I grew up in sport. And I took it up quite early. I think grade 3 is when I officially started to play and train only volleyball. But before that, my mum didn't want me to play volleyball. And so I was sent to do gymnastics because she likes athletes that have a basis of using the whole body. And volleyball is very one arm dominant, one leg dominant. So she preferred for me to get used to using both of my hands and legs and then diverse myself into volleyball.
And is volleyball like a mainstream sport in Estonia?
Yeah, it's for the women's, it's the main sport. And even for men, it's been always high level. We are in Europe, we are at a level where we are competitive with the bigger countries. You get immersed quite deeply. So it's quite often that you do not play different sports when you grow up. This one sport you take up, that's your time now. That's your sport. So ever since grade 3, I believe we train 3 times a week, if not more. But then you had competitions where it's every 2 months, it's a competition from Friday to Sunday and you travel and go. And if you are good, then you play a year up. So then you have 2 weekends every 2 months up. So it's a lot of volleyball as soon as you're young. And that's not volleyball, that's all sports. You start primary school, grade 1, depending on what your parents want you to do. And more professional, I guess, the national teams come into play when you're grade 8, which is you're 14. So under 14s is the first national team where coaches select you and you go to a camp, which is always at school holidays. You go there, train with the team, and at the end of it, there was a tournament somewhere, whether it was in Estonia or somewhere else. And since from there, you're just part of the program or you get kicked out.
And how do you get selected to be, like you said, when you're 14 or something?
Yeah. So those tournaments that you went every 2 months, the coaches, the national team coaches are usually there also, and they observe players. And based on that, they invite you.
How would you balance sort of school life and playing volleyball?
For me, it was really easy because when I became 16, we have the sports academy where the talented players or athletes are invited to, which is the equivalent of the AIS in Australia. So you start when you are 16 and it's grade 10, 11, 12, which for us it's called gymnasium. And there it's school and the sports is integrated. So the classes are held where also the facilities are. So it was easy for us to train ever since I was 16, twice a day. And it was accommodated to travel and play and just become the best you can get in that environment. So for me, it was very easy. The girls who didn't go through my pathway and we ended up playing, they still did the same thing in their hometowns, and they trained 3, 4, 5 times a week and then played over the weekend. So you just commit to it and you do it because you love it.
And if you go to one of those more sports-oriented schools, do you have to travel somewhere else or is it close to Tartu?
It's in the capital. So for me, it was a 2.5-hour drive from home by bus. And when I had a free weekend that I didn't play, I would take the bus and go home and do my laundry, and then mum could feed me whatever I wanted and then go back on Sunday night and go back to school. It's not too far, but as a 16-year-old, it was amazing. It's great.
Yeah. And so at what stage in your life did you decide that you wanted to do that as your career?
Probably before I went to the academy, because my goal was to be the best volleyball player Estonia had. That didn't happen, but that was my goal. I trained for it. It was my passion. So I guess I made that decision quite early, and then I just put heaps of work into it towards becoming that.
You said that at first your mum didn't really want you to go into volleyball, and was she sort of fully behind all this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Once I was in it, it wasn't that she didn't want me there. It was just that was actually with the idea that I would be a better player if I would be more well-rounded. Yep. So once I was in it, my family has fully supported my sports endeavours, and because I wasn't that talented at school, at least I was talented with sports. So they were like, okay, we're giving me a little bit of slack with the school side. I still had to have my grades good, but they didn't have to be like exceptional because I had that sport dedication and I was working towards something.
And did you ever have a fallback plan in case, or a backup plan in case things didn't quite work out?
Not really. I went to university, but I just, again, wasn't that gifted in that field. Probably I just didn't have that interest because volleyball was my passion, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to become a professional athlete. So I didn't have a fallback plan.
No going back.
Yeah.
And so what was the pathway from starting at this school and getting into professional volleyball?
When I graduated, clubs, you have two options. Either you can go to America and do uni there with a contract that you play also and train there. So you can get a different level of stipendiums, and could be that everything's paid for or partially paid for, depending on, again, your level and the contract you can get. And that's available for everyone in the world. Like, you put an amazing video together and talk to the scouts. Or clubs in Europe look for players, and there are managers who put players and teams together depending on what they want, what are the expectations, the fees, and so on. So you can get an agent for Europe, or you can get an agent for America. So those are the main two pathways.
And so what was it like for you?
For me, it was it was a little bit different. I got an agent in the end to get a contract in Europe because I had a boyfriend then who I met and who was also a player, and we decided to stay together for a year and see if the relationship is worth it to stay together, because as an athlete, long distance is inevitable, like it's going to happen, and we wanted to see if it's worth it or not. His agent found us two clubs that were close by, and we both were able to play. That was in Cyprus.
Cyprus.
In Cyprus.
Very different from Estonia.
Yes, it was sunny, so sunny. Still cold. Cyprus was an interesting country. It's so warm and hot, but the buildings are also built like that. So as soon as it's cold, it's concrete everywhere. So it's going to stay cold. If there's not a sunny day, it's a little bit like Tasmania.
How long did you spend in Cyprus?
I was 2 years there, and then we decided to try a different country.
What stage did you decide to come to Australia, and how did all that happen?
I was another 2 years in Europe playing, and on the last year, we both, my husband and I, we started to be more often injured than not. And every morning you woke up and you're like, oh, is this the injury that I can't fix, and that's it, I can't play anymore, or can I do another week? Can I do another week? And so we talked about it and decided that, I guess, we agreed on what we are looking for in our last year of playing professional sports. And every athlete wants that, which is a good result, a good level that you yourself are still playing. So it's not that you're on the bench and your team is winning, but you are contributing and you're doing well, so you remember that you helped the team. And you just leave with a good feeling, good memory about the sport and the season. And we had that both. We competed well, our teams did well, and the clubs themselves, they were happy to have us back, even if we wanted to have a break for a year. So it was quite easy to make that decision, just because everything sort of fell into place, and decided to give Australia a go.
And was there a possibility of staying in Europe instead?
Not from what we saw. I had a look how easy it is for an Australian to get citizenship in Estonia for my husband. And it was so difficult. Things like he had to be in the country for 6 years and he couldn't get full residency for work. So I still had to support him through that. So it was like, it didn't make sense. He's going to have to be there for such a long time, but didn't get resident or permanent resident support or government support, I guess. So we had a look at that, and that was very, very difficult, especially comparing to Australia, where you have different options to come. Even we wanted to stay a little bit longer than 3 months in Estonia over the summer, and that took us heaps of paperwork, bureaucracy, where I argued with the ladies at the It's the equivalent of service TAS. And they're like, you can't do this. And I was like, yes, I can, because I did it last year. And this is the form you have to submit. And I have already submitted this. You just have to do this. And they're like, no, you can't do this. Like, it was an argument of me telling what they have to do and they're not willing to do it, even though I had done it the year before. In the end, it worked out, but even that was super difficult. So I didn't see a real way to stay in Europe. But also we already sort of had decided that Australia was going to be our next step.
And had you been here before? Had you been here for a visit?
Yeah, because I was with my husband for 5 years before we moved. And so I had visited 3 times. And so I had been to Adelaide, Sydney, Canberra at the AIS, and Hobart every single time also.
So did you sort of feel fairly confident about settling in Australia okay and Tasmania?
I guess with the past of traveling and never knowing where you're going to go and what it's going to be, it was quite easy. It was a lot easier to come here than other places because you had my husband's family, his friends already were here. The culture is quite easy, or the language is, I speak the language, so I was able to talk to people and go to the grocery store and realize what's being sold there, not just guessing and be like, oh, is this milk or what is this? So from that point of view, it was really easy to come here. Again, moving was easy for me because I had lived from just one suitcase for 4 years by then. So I packed up one suitcase again and I left. And because we didn't know how long we were going to come, I came on a work and holiday visa, which has the few restrictions, which is like you have to do your farm days to get a second year visa. You can't work in a workplace longer than 3 months. So I had those restrictions for my first year, and they ended up being a pain in the ass. But everything else was quite easy. I got a job, and the majority of the jobs I've done here have been just someone referred me to somebody and it was like, oh yeah, she'll do. So it was really easy from that point of view of just as long as you knew people, I was able to develop and get into the spirit of Tasmanian life. I was lucky. So I worked at the Eastside Activity Centre, Brokeby, as my first job as a trampolining coach, and it was awesome. They looked at me and they're like, yep, you can catch kids, so you're hired. I had basic knowledge about it, but it was a great time. It was fun.
And that would be an interesting way to meet locals, I guess, as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Met so many people there, so many kids. So yeah, it was a great way to start my life here.
And was there anything that was challenging to adapt to in sort of the initial period?
Just the cultural differences, things like, and I've had this this conversation with my current boss also, where in Estonia, when you ask, how are you going? It is a question, and you expect a long answer and you stand there and you dissect everything, and hear people going, how are you going? And not even making eye contact and like walking away. And I got caught so many times with just like starting my conversation of, oh, today, and then I see this person just wandering off. I was like, but they asked, like, what happened? So that was something I had to learn, that people don't actually want to hear the details of your day or how you're going. It's just they say it and they don't expect anything to hear back. Like, we have the terms, if you just go and say, hi, tere, the other person will just say back to you, tere, and that's it, everyone. And that's the norm, like that's how you, but as soon as someone's like, hi, tere, kuidas sul läheb, how are you? Then you expect that person will actually tell you now. So it's very two different things that you start the conversation with, so you know what's expected from you. Where here it's like, it's just that one phrase, and I struggle with it. Another one was people here are super friendly and open. When you meet them, everyone smiles to you, and you come away from, let's say, a function like a birthday party, and heaps of people you talk to and make plans and so on. and you walk away and like, oh, there was a lot of people that I spoke to. Where in my culture, I would go to a function and I would just speak to the people I like, and I would walk away with knowing that this person really likes me, and this person didn't because they didn't have that conversation with me, and that's fine. Like it is what it is. So you don't dwell on it. It's just like, I know these people they really like me, but I found really hard for me to take the Australians as sincere because everyone was so open and friendly. So I was like, I don't actually know who actually liked me, or were they just being polite, where we are very straightforward and we can say unpolite because we are so direct, cold. It seems cold, but it's very easy way of living. It's black or white. But one of the things that not struggle, but again, I noticed here and back at home, and I know the Finns are the same, is making plans. And it's if someone's like, oh, we should catch up. That means in Estonia, someone's already looking at the calendar, booking something in the next 3 days. Where here it's like, oh, we should have a catch up. And like, yep, everyone just nods, but nothing happens. So, and that was something, again, I was like, who's making the plan? Like, is it me? Or like... But they said they want to meet up. So that was something I had to get used to again, that, we should catch up. Doesn't mean you're going to. Yeah, we are a little bit more straight shooters, and we make fun of my husband of when he came to Estonia. He says that it took him 4 months for somebody to him feel like, okay, I have friends now.
Okay.
Which I feel bad for him, but now the friends he made in Estonia, they are deep friendships that he loves going back to, and he loves going back to Estonia to see those people. So it's really hard to come into that culture if you're not raised in it. But the relationships, because I guess they are more, you don't have a bucket full of friends, or you don't try to be friendly with everyone. So the people you are friendly with, they are deep friendships that will last your long lifetime. And we had a chat about this once with my husband, and how he would describe it. And I think it's really accurate, is in Australia, you are a friend unless you give them a reason not to be. But back at, I guess, East Europe or Northern Europe, probably not all northern countries, but definitely Estonia, you're not friends until you give that person a reason to be friends.
Okay.
So it's just a different starting point, but end result is the same. And this is how you create friendships. It takes a little bit longer. It's a bit slow start.
Sounds like it was relatively easy to get into some kind of work to begin with.
Yeah.
But were those just part-time jobs?
My next job already was the job that I was in for 5 years at the airport. So I did apply for my permanent residency earlier, because as soon as I went on to that one, the bridging visa had the conditions of my permanent residency visa conditions. So I was able to work in one place for a longer time. As soon as I wasn't restricted by my visa, it was quite easy to get to my next job. And that was, again, a friend of mine was like, you come along, this is Triin.
Yeah.
She needs a job. And that was it. And again, they looked at me and they're like, oh, she's strong enough to do this. Okay, let's go.
And how easy was it to sort of build social connections and friendships and things like that?
That was something that was hard. And we have spoken with my friends. Most of them are foreign. And I think it's because we all here without our friends from childhood, the majority of us are just yourself and the partner. So isn't that connection to Tasmania? So we don't have every Sunday planned for a family dinner, or that day you do something. So we created this friendship group of foreigners because it was really hard to make long-term Australian friends, because they all had those connections and already they didn't need friends.
Yeah. That's how I sort of explain it to people, that, we've got a fairly static population, people who've lived here for all their lives and all their friends
Yeah.
They've had for ages and they're not really recruiting anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just don't need it. Like you still make connections but they don't need you as much as you need them. And that's why it's the foreigners usually stick together just because we need each other in our lives because we don't have anyone else.
So can you give us an idea of what's sort of typical for Estonians to eat?
It comes down to the season. So I guess summer and winter time is the best to describe, but winter time it's potatoes, meat sauce, and a fermented salad or something. Like so sauerkraut or something that's in a jar because it's just what our grandmas and grandpas grew up on, and we love it also still. Rye bread, the dark rye bread. I didn't know that white bread is actually meant to be eaten until I started to travel around. We don't sell it, or we have it in the shops, but people just don't eat it. That's something very different from back at home and here. And summertime, we love charcoal cooked meat. So we don't have gas barbecues. Everything's done on coals, above coals, and then just a salad next to it. That's our summer food. It's something meat. Probably now, I haven't lived there for 15 years, 16 years. It has changed more that it's grilled vegetables also. But back then it was just some kind of meat made on the coals and then a salad next to it.
I seem to remember there was quite a lot of seafood dishes, at least in maybe Tallinn because it's near the sea.
Yeah, it's especially breakfast. We have fish for breakfast, sardines on rye bread, herring. That's something I have started to see it in Hill Street and places like places that bring European food in that don't know who has had it ever here because I have never seen anyone eat it or say that that's something they would like to have, but I've seen it. Yeah, seafood is, again, smoked seafood, various different fish. We don't have the big prawns. We have the tiny 2 millimeter prawns. But yeah, like because we are next to the ocean, or the sea, we have heaps of seafood and freshwater fish also that we eat. That's part of it also. And wild game, which here isn't as dominant, but we eat. That's like a delicacy that someone has gone hunting, and wild game is quite often something people eat when they can, because it's not always there, but it's something people look for.
And is it like foraging popular in like going to the forest and picking mushrooms and berries?
Yes, that's heaps of people do it. And as a kid, I did it heaps with Nan, just going to the forest close by, and everyone knows what's poisonous, what's not. And there's heaps of berries and mushrooms that you collect. And again, you ferment everything again and make the jams for the winter time. So yeah, foraging is quite heaps popular. Like it comes in waves. Like it was popular because of need back in the day, but now it's because it's just good for you. So people do it, and it's just part of the culture.
And is it like a social event?
Yeah, you grab a couple of friends together and just like, okay, it's a good weather, let's go. And I know everyone has spots. I know this spot. So don't tell anyone else, but I'll take you to my spot.
And are there any, I suppose, Estonian traditions or customs that you might still maintain or find it important to maintain?
I don't think I have any left because it's now sort of my tradition here. But I had heaps more back there because everyone was doing it. So things like Midsummer Day is a massive party night where you build a bonfire and you jump over and hope not to get burned. And one of the biggest traditions in Estonia is the sauna culture, I guess. And every function, something has a sauna involved. Birthdays, weddings. That's something I don't have here and I miss greatly. And
well, I've been told that there's a Finnish sauna on Bruny Island.
I have been told that also, but you have to find a Finnish friend, and I have found my Finnish friend, and we have tried to organize ourselves, as in me as the guest, to go there. It hasn't worked out yet, but I'm very, very hopeful that it will one day. I've tried Derby sauna. That was amazing. Oh, that was great. That was like being back at home. And there's another one coming. They're making a boat sauna. I think it was Cheapston, It hasn't opened yet, but it's opening next month or something like that. So I'm very excited for that also. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Back at home, there was heaps of specific foods that you ate during specific holidays. And so the first few years I kept up with doing those, but because they're a little bit different and no one else besides me liked them. So I ended up eating it all by myself and it was a lot of work. So I they phased sadly out. So I still have a couple of things that I specifically make for Christmas, and I still make my Estonian summer barbecue meats and so on.
There's a few other people have mentioned midsummer festivals, like in Latvia. I know it's a really big thing in Sweden.
Yeah.
What do people do at that time in Estonia?
So the friendship group, they all go to someone's summer shack that's only 5 to 10 minutes away, and you stay up all night. You have a sauna, you have a barbecue, you have the fire, and you just have rounds in the sauna. So you just stay up all night long, enjoy the long summer night.
And I know that in that part of the world also singing is quite a big thing.
Yeah. Everyone sings, whether you're good or bad at it. I was bad at it.
Okay.
But everyone sings, and it's always been in our tradition to do heaps of singing. So there are a lot of people someone's part of some choir, especially at school. When you're older, you probably start singing less. We have this music festival that's held every 4 years, and it's it's awesome. It's something I've never seen anyone else have it, but it's a choir festival where all the choirs across the country practice these songs that are written specifically for that event, and they practice sometimes 2 years and go on before. And I can't remember the numbers, but if anyone Googles the song festival in Estonia and have a look at the songs and videos of it, it's something spectacular, and that's something people travel to specifically to see in Estonia, because it's just something you need to experience. It's amazing.
And do you still play volleyball at any level?
I do. That will never go out of my system probably until they drag me off court. So I do play here at the local club level. I did manage to scrape together for 2 teams. So I technically run 2 clubs because I just wanted to have a big training group, but that made it so that I had enough for 2 teams. But I also play for the state team also.
And so how much of a commitment is that?
So we started up again just last week for the state team. And with the state team, we have 2 trainings a week plus a physical, like a conditioning session also. And it's a block until, I think, end of June. Then we have a break and we start up again already in August. And the tournament will be October, November, 5 or 6 weekends where we travel, and we have a tournament here also. So it's teams are coming to Tasmania, and we will be going to Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne.
And how does it sort of compare with what you've experienced in Europe?
It's a development comparing to, because we didn't have that in Tasmania ever until 5 years ago, where this state team started, and that was with the push of my husband and I, because we wanted that release of traveling and that part of our past life back, whether it's in a coach's capacity or as a player capacity. Thankfully, I can still compete, probably not for that long, but at the moment I'm still challenging the younger girls, just with experience. But yeah, it is day and night, but it is in a development phase at the moment. So heaps of good things are happening with it, and it's developing beautifully. But yeah, I can't compare it because I'm that's a social level that back at home, but it's not going to be that forever.
I guess it's at a very different stage where it's sort of more of an infant stage, I
Exactly,
suppose.
absolutely.
Hopefully in a few years we'll experience more development, I guess.
Oh yeah, it will happen. Like the players already that from even 2 years ago when we started with a different kind of blocks and so on. But 5 years ago, every year you can see the development of the level, physical level, but also that mental competitive level. Just that was probably the hardest to do, to switch the mindset of that it's not anymore just for funsies, but it's competitive now. You either perform or you're not on the court. So it's just amazing to see the development, and just I love the sport. So for me, it's amazing.
So do you think you'll continue to be involved in that sort of way and helping develop new players and so on?
I would like to think that, but at the same time, I am highly competitive, and because I care about the sport so much, I struggle coaching.
Okay.
Because I don't understand if someone isn't as passionate as I am about it. As a player, it doesn't matter, because if I'm passionate and better, I'm on the court. But as a coach, you can't force that. So I don't know. I don't know at the moment. It's because that I have to make that decision in the next few years. What it's going to be, I don't know. I probably can't walk away from it, but we'll have to see. For me, it's not even the technique that I get excited about. It's when I see a player having that good sports aggression, especially females. We aren't taught to be nice and polite and so on, and to drag that competitiveness out, I found that really hard. So when I see a player who has that, that just melts my heart. That's something I enjoy the most, because when you have that competitiveness, the rest of it I can teach. But if you don't have it, I can't teach that. I can create it. I can create situations where it can come out, but I can't teach that.
And so maybe think of another question regarding just the attitude to sports in Estonia versus Australia, especially the impression I get, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that the female sport is a little bit more advanced. They're all more encouraged than perhaps Australia.
Yeah.
Is that a fair
answer? It is. Sadly, yes. That was something here. The men do whatever sports they do, and the female sport is sort of like an afterthought. And I didn't even realize until just when it happened that with AFL, with being the national sport, that there wasn't a female league until 7 years ago, I think. Like it was just recently. And I didn't realize until it was in the news that it's being created that it wasn't there. And I thought that was horrible. Like all of these girls are growing up watching it and wanting to play it, but there's nothing in place for the national sport. I thought that was horrifying. And it is with other sports the same. If you think about netball being the main female sport, how just a few players can survive on it and not have a job while being in the national teams, even though it's the main sport. So it is definitely not where I would like it to be, but it is developing, but it does have a long, fair way to go.
Yeah, and then how's Estonia different? I mean, it sounds like you can, like in volleyball, for example, you can be a professional volleyballer and make a living.
In the country itself, you probably can't. You can if you have a full scholarship through the university, at least. So at least that's paid for. But how it works is you usually go and play in clubs, in different clubs. And again, it has probably changed by now. If I go back, because when I was part of it, it was the same. I think we had only 2 years of the national women's team, not junior team, that had enough funding to run it, where the men were running for years and years and years and years and were paid for it. So it's not nowhere where it should be. Like the rest of the world, men and female sport is not on an equal level. But it's the amount of girls, though, they do sports and competitive level, doesn't matter how, but they just make it happen, is a lot greater than it is here.